Hey everybody, welcome to my guide on how to properly install and configure Dino Overhaul X, how to set it up for the difficulty that you want to play on, and change the DOX settings to include or disable the settings that you want. So if you are watching this video, then you probably already know where to get DOX, but if you don't, you want to open up Steam, click on ARK first of all, which is going to be over here in your games. Click on Workshop, and then you're going to go over here to the search bar and search Dino Overhaul X. And that is right here. Click on it, and it'll take you to the main page where you can subscribe to it. Now, DOX does update quite regularly, and sometimes, especially in single player, when you launch the ARK client, it doesn't automatically update all your mods if they've just been recently updated. So sometimes in order to get the latest updates, you'll need to come to this page, click unsubscribe, and then resubscribe. It'll download the mod again, and then install it again in your ARK client. So just be aware of that. If you scroll down here, you can see the recommended settings, and you'll see it's the tame dino stats per level, and all you have to do to change the difficulty is just change these settings. Don't change anything else. Now, if you are coming from playing a different mod, it's possible that your difficulty offset and override official difficulty will not be correct. Make sure that these are set to 1 and 5 or lower. Generally, you want 5 to get the correct levels. If you set them any higher, then your levels are all going to be messed up. So go ahead and download this. Subscribe to the mod, and it'll download. And when you scroll down here to the bottom, there's a link here for the DOX Discord. If you click here, this will take you to the DOX Discord. I highly recommend that you go to this Discord because there are some tools that we're going to be using from the Discord. Now, some of those tools are available here. The INI configuration, for example, is here. We're going to be going to that. The blueprint spreadsheet and summon commands is here. We're going to be using that. The DOX official guide is here. Highly recommend that you read that while you're playing. Use it as an in-game reference while you're playing. But the DOX Discord is where I'm going to be sourcing the information from for this video guide. So I would recommend you just click here, join the Discord. And that way, if anything goes wrong, you can always ask in the Discord. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend I've already clicked here and I've signed in to the Discord. When you do, you're going to get the DOX Discord right here. Come over here to channels and roles. Make sure that you've reviewed the rules and make sure all of these are checked. If you don't have all of these things checked, you won't get access to all these channels. So make sure you have all these checked under channels and roles. Then you're going to come down here, and if you go to official server info, you can click on this link, and this will take you to a Steam collection of the various mods that are run on official. These are the mods that Dino Overhaul X recommends that you use. You don't have to use all of these. I'm going to go through each one of them and kind of point out which ones you absolutely need to use and which ones you can skip. S+, highly, highly recommended. If you're truly hardcore and want to play without S+, that's up to you. You can tweak so many settings in S+, you can make it as broken or as vanilla as you want it to be. It's really up to you and your playstyle. I recommend using it just because building an ARK without S+ is a pain, and there are certainly some features in S+, like the teleporter, that are just flat out better and highly useful for DOX. You'll notice also we don't have awesome teleporters in this list, and without S+, I would recommend awesome teleporters because at endgame you need a way to teleport around the map. It's just too slow otherwise. Pet Cemetery, I don't know why this is still here. We don't have it on official. Awesome Spyglass, this is 100% needed. Without Awesome Spyglass, you cannot see the boss modifiers, and you will not know what fights you're taking. You can get away without using the Awesome Spyglass in the early game, but once you start fighting Nest Defenders, they have modifiers. Once you start fighting Primes, they all have modifiers. You'll need Awesome Spyglass. Death Recovery mod, this is up to you, and it depends on how hardcore of a player you are. If you want to go on adventures trying to recover your bags after you die, by all means, don't install a Death Recovery mod. This one is the one we use on official, and It basically allows you to place a single gravestone that lets you recover your corpse. There's a cooldown on how often you can do the recovery, so you can't spam it. You can only place one gravestone on the map, so there's some restrictions, but I would recommend this if you just want to have kind of a normal experience. If you are a hardcore player, feel free to skip it. Dino Storage V2, this is what ARK as a base game should have. Cryopods suck. Use Dino Storage. Upgrade Station, this can be extremely cheaty and broken. I'll show you the config settings to make this not broken. But we do have Upgrade Station on official purely as a salvage machine. That's really all we use it for, is to salvage things. Upgrade Station can be useful because the DOX default settings don't allow you to grind tech, or rather, you can grind tech gear, but you won't get element back. The Upgrade Station, if you break down tech gear, you get a very, very, very small amount of element, but that small amount of element, if you break down all your tech gear, it does add up. And in fact, I'll just show you right now the setting that we have here to turn off the Blueprint Station. Yeah, here we go. Blueprint Station is disabled, so that is going to be right here in game.ini. Blueprint Station metal, Blueprint Station base C, Blueprint Station base C, augment station. All of these are hidden engrams. You can't learn the engrams, so you can't build them. If you disable the Blueprint Station and the augment station, the upgrade station itself is not that cheaty. But even so, you can see the rest of the settings we have here to make the upgrade station less cheaty. So if you are going to use Upgrade Station, I would recommend having the same exact settings as official. So that's going to be changes in your game.ini for disabling the engrams, and it's going to be changes in your game user settings.ini for the actual mod settings for Upgrade Station. Lethal's reusable, or sorry, we're on Creature Finder Deluxe. Creature Finder Deluxe, I would recommend using it if you don't have a ton of time to play. If you only have a couple hours, an hour or two at night, I would recommend using it. There's a lot of things you have to do in this mod that require you to find certain creatures and kill them for tributes, and the tributes are already a random chance to even get the tribute, even after you get the kill. And killing these things is a whole thing in itself. It can be very difficult. So if you're also having to find the creatures and you can't find them, and some maps have bad spawns and there just aren't many, like Ragnarok, for example. King Prime Kong just does not spawn well on that map. There's usually only one Kong in the entire map. Without CFD, Creature Finder Deluxe, it's really hard to find that one Kong, and then you can't evolve your Prime Fire Manticores without the Kong head. So I would recommend using it, and I would recommend installing it and use it as you want it. You know, if you don't want to use it, don't use it. If you get stuck and you need something, then you have it there. Lethal's reusables. There's some quality of life features in here that are really nice. The reusable grappling hook is really nice. Reusable parachute's really nice. Some really some stuff that makes early game a little bit broken, like the reusable spear, but you can't do that much with the reusable spear. I mean, it only does like 39 damage per shot. So it's up to you whether or not you want to use this. You certainly don't have to. Reusable bola is also nice, but you don't have to use it. Advanced rafts, I don't know why this is in here. We don't have this anymore. Shiny dinos. This can be useful for leveling up your chibis, because when you kill certain types of shinies, you get chibi experience. I don't know which ones. I literally never use this. And Eternal Stacks. This is the replacement for HG Stacks. This lets you stack certain resources up to 1,000. Stack size does kind of matter when it comes to elements specifically, because element shards, how much the element shards stack, and the stack size of your cloning chamber will determine how expensive certain things are to clone. So on official, we have 600 slots in the S Plus cloner and 999 slots in the DOX cloner. That means the most anything can ever cost to clone on the DOX cloner is 999 times 1,000, because that's the stack size of element shards thanks to this Eternal Stacks mod. So that's basically 999,000 element shards, or 9.9k, 9,900 element is the max anything will ever cost to clone on official. Or if you're using the S Plus cloner, it'll only cost 6,000 element, or 600,000 shards to clone. If your stacks are way higher, then you could have cloning costs that are quite obscene. But the element in this game is pretty much only dropped by killing megas, which are high tier bosses, um, and they don't drop that much. So if you have cloning costs, or if you have stack sizes set too high, it can mess with your cloning costs, which you can get around that by changing your INI settings, but generally speaking, I would recommend this stack mod because that's the one we use unofficial. If you use other ones, just be aware of things like that that can mess it up. So that's the mods. You're going to go ahead and subscribe to whatever mods you want. You can subscribe to other mods. Note that any mod not in this list is not necessarily tested by the DOX Discord community, and it's possible that it will break your mod. It'll break DOX. Regardless of which mods you have, DOX must be the first in the load order. If you don't have it first in the load order, it'll mess up. So you subscribe to all these mods in Steam. Your downloads are all complete. So you go back to the game, and you're going to launch. But before you launch, if you're playing in single player, you're going to come over here to Manage, go to Properties, and you're going to come down here, and you're going to make sure you have Prevent Hibernation with a dash in front of it in the Advanced User Launch Options. Having this makes sure that your single player game continues to have a life cycle even while you're not online. What that means is that baby dinosaurs will continue to grow while you're offline. It means that dinosaurs that lay eggs, like manticores and wyverns, will continue to lay eggs while you're offline. It makes sure that dinos that have a limited lifetime will despawn after that lifetime, even when you're offline. If you don't have this on, and you're playing single player, your world is non-persistent essentially, unlike a server which is always running. If you don't have this on in single player, it's going to mess up. So make sure you have this on if you're going to play the game in single player. So we're going to go ahead and click play and launch. And when we launch the game, if you haven't already installed the mod, you're going to see mods installing in the bottom right corner. Now, when that's the case, wait for those mods to finish installing, and this is true especially if you're updating the game. Wait for the mods to finish installing. You would see them here before you click on this if you're playing in single player. If you click on this first, what will happen is the mods that haven't finished installing will drop out of your list. They'll drop out of this active mods list. And what that'll mean is that some mod, like say Shiny Dinos, that didn't need an update will jump up to the top, and the mod that you just updated, like DOX, will drop down here to available mods, and it won't be in active mods. So then that'll mess up your list. You need DOX at the top, otherwise it doesn't work. So go ahead and wait for the installs to finish, and then you can click here. Now, once you've clicked here, this is where you change the actual difficulty of DOX. So pick the map you want to play on, set your mods up, come over here to Advanced. You're not going to change anything else to change the difficulty. Now you can change other things, but this is how you change the DOX difficulty as recommended. So first of all, we need to find the difficulty. So we're going to go back over here to the Discord server. We're going to click on Server Config, and you can get the difficulty by scrolling up and clicking on this image, and here's your difficulty settings. For easy, for medium, for hard, for hardest, you'll notice what it says is recommended. Hardest is for 4 to 6 players per team, medium's 2 to 3 players per team, or experienced critical thinkers. Recommended is easy, which is if you've never played before, you should probably start on easy. This is the tame dino stats per level. This is the only thing you need to change, and you need to disable single player settings. These are the only things you need to change in order to set DOX up for a specific difficulty. So we have this as reference. We're going to go ahead and set our game to easy. So we go back to ARK, and we come down here to tame dino stats per level, and we're going to set this up for easy. So health was 1.5, so we set health to 1.5. Stamina was 1.65, torpidity 1.8, 1.65, 1.8. Oxygen, food, water, temperature were all 1. Weight was 1.75, damage was 0.8, 1.75, 0.8. Speed and temp fort are 1. Everything else in here, you're going to leave it as it was before, or if you already have an INI file that has been heavily modified because you've been playing other mods, make sure they're set to vanilla settings, at least for the dino stats. Wild dino stats for level should all be 1. Tame dinos add per level should be 1, except for health is 0.14, damage is 0.14. Tame dino stats affinity should all be 1, except for health is 0.44, damage is 0.44. Player stats per level, you can change this however you like. I would recommend leave health at 1, leave stamina at 1, leave torpidity at 1, leave oxygen at 1, change food or water to whatever you want. Temperature, leave it at 1. Weight, you can make it a bit higher, don't make it too high, but if you change this to 3 or 4, it's not going to break the game. Damage, leave it at 1. Speed, leave it at 1. Experience, I would recommend leaving it all default. It's up to you. There are ways in DOX to get experience pretty quickly if you know what you're doing, and if you don't know how to get experience quickly, just play the game. There's a lot of things you can do before you reach max level, and if you have your settings too high, you don't get to experience those. So I recommend leaving it alone. If you don't want to listen to that advice, do whatever you want. Everything else in here, you can change it to your heart's content. It doesn't really affect the game that much. Baby timers, hatch speed, things like that. Change it to whatever makes sense for you and the amount of time you have to play. And that is it. That's how you set up. Your DOX for easy, medium, hard, or hardest. Now, there are also the DOX settings, and we're going to go over those. Now, this list was from 2021, so it's no longer complete. So what we're going to do, even though it's edited, there's some things were added. To make sure we always have the latest list, we're going to come over here and we're going to go to Spawn Commands link. We're going to click on this, and this takes us to the DOX spreadsheet. This spreadsheet gives you summoning codes for any DOX item you want to summon. If you want to summon it in your single player game, you are welcome to do so. It's up to you. But what we're interested here is the DOX settings. So I'm going to go over each of the DOX settings and tell you which ones I would recommend you turning on and which ones I would recommend you turning off and what they all do and how to do that. Insanity mode, false by default, I would leave that off. Nobody has this on. This basically just makes the game even harder than it already is. If you want to make the game harder, change your settings as we discussed earlier. Boss modifiers, by default this is true. What this means is that primes, nest defenders, megas, and titans, so all the different types of bosses in the game, can roll random modifiers. Those modifiers can be things like extra fast, extra damage, extra defense, fast HP regeneration. By default this is on, and I would recommend leaving it on. It makes DOX more challenging, and it kind of makes it the mod it is. I think turning it off kind of makes it a different mod. Tiered bosses, this is a big one. By default this is off. In my opinion, this should be on by default, and I would recommend you setting it on. And the reason I would recommend that is because if you don't have this on, farming farming element can be challenging. When this is on, whenever you kill a mega, which is a certain type of high-level boss, a new mega of that exact same type will spawn in after the first mega dies. That new mega, when you kill it, will drop no loot except for corruption crystal shards. Corruption crystal shards can be used to mine element in the DOX industrial mining forge, or industrial mining drill rather. And this is the way, unofficial, we farm lots of element, and element is needed to clone your dinosaurs, and cloning is a big part of the end game of DOX. So I would recommend having it on for that reason alone. The other reason to have it on is because when you kill a mega and a new mega spawns in to take its place, that fundamentally changes how you play the game. Each of these new megas that spawn in are going to be stronger than the mega that came before it. So if you're fighting a Megapithecus and you kill it, the stage 1 Megapithecus spawns in, and if you just sit there looking at your loot, that stage 1 Megapithecus is going to kill you. So as soon as you kill a mega, you need to get to safety because that stage is going to spawn in. Now, every time you kill a staged mega, the next stage will spawn in up to stage 4. There's no stages beyond stage 4. I would recommend turning this on. Like I said, if you want a true DOX experience, you can have it off if you want to. It's up to you. Nemesis, this is a new feature. What this means is that when a mega kills you, it gets stronger. It gets more defense and more damage resistance. More damage and more damage resistance. By default, this is on. It's up to you whether or not you want to have this on. DOX is pretty hard with this on, but it is the default setting. Dynamic Battle AI. This is what makes DOX dinosaurs smart. If you turn this off, you're not playing DOX. Leave it on. Dynamic spawner is true. This prevents prime wilds and above from ensuring that they spawn on all maps. That's not worded very well. This basically means that dinosaurs are going to spawn regardless of whether or not they natively spawn on that map. Mega wall health, and dome health. I don't know why Mike has crossed these out. They might not be valid anymore. Previously, they were used to set the health of mega walls and health of the DOX dome. Loot bag flash. By default, this is on. This makes it so that loot bags on the ground every 5 to 10 seconds they'll flash with like a kind of a red beacon light. Makes it helpful to find bags on the ground. There's no reason to turn this off. Min HP needed to count kill, and min HP needed to count kill apex. What this does is this sets the minimum HP that a creature must have in order for when you kill that creature with your dinosaur, in order for that to count towards that dinosaur's paragon levels. Paragon levels I'm not going to go into here. If you want to read about them, you can open up the DOX guide and read about them. You can reach that guide by going back to the Discord and clicking on guide link, and it's right here. There's a tab right here for paragon. So you can read all about it right here. But basically, when you kill a creature with your apex dinosaur, it needs to have 500 HP for that kill to count towards its paragon level. And for a prime dinosaur or higher, it needs to have 2500 HP. These are the default settings. If you want to make it so that anything you kill gives your dinosaur kills towards its paragon level, set this to 1. If you want to make it so that only really high level things count, set it to higher health. It's up to you. Disable speed nerf. By default, this is not disabled. By default, what this means is that your maximum speed is 375. You cannot level up a dinosaur's speed to higher than 375. If you do, its stats will reset. The max speed in the game is 450%. That's the max you can get by pumping as many points into speed as possible and by wearing armor that increases speed and using consumables that increase speed. If you disable this, if you set it to 0, then you can level up as much speed as you want, and that pretty much breaks the game. I don't recommend doing it. I would recommend leaving this alone. All of these settings are the cooldown time for health potions. I would leave them as they are. Cloning speed multiplier, cloning cost multiplier, and cloning chamber slot count. These are all applied to the DOX cloner. You can set these as you need to set them based on the difficulty that you want to play, based on how much you want your clones to cost, based on how big your stack sizes are for element shards, for example. Set it to whatever makes sense to you. As I said on official, it's 10k element to clone on the DOX cloner and 6k on the S Plus as a maximum threshold. It can be lower than that. Sometimes it is. For various dinosaurs it is lower, but those are the maximums. Scale damage equals 1. What this means is that when you are fighting mega dinosaurs in a group with other players, so it doesn't apply on single player, when you're fighting dinosaurs in a group, megas and above and megas and titans will take reduced damage per player, up to 3 players. So if you're fighting a mega with a single ally, so there's 2 players, that mega dinosaur that you're fighting will take 18% reduced damage. If you're fighting with 3 players, they'll take 33% reduced damage. And if you're fighting with more than 3 players, it's still only 33% damage reduction. Mega spawn limiter, what this means is that every 35 seconds or so, the game will look at all the different megas. It'll look at each individual mega. It'll go through the whole list. And if there's more than 5 mega of that type on a map, it'll go ahead and delete one of them. And that makes sure that there's only a certain number of megas on the map at any time. It makes sure that you can't have like hundreds of megas on the map, which would make the game impossible. All of these next ones have to do with alpha everything. I would recommend leaving them all alone. You can read what they do here. They're not very important. So that's it for the DOX settings. Now, where do you set these? Well, in a single player game, you're going to want to come over here to C, x86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, ARK, Shooter Game, Saved, Config, Windows No Editor, and in here there are 2 files, game.ini and gameusersettings.ini. Game.ini has your tame dino stats per level. You'll notice that they are not the same they're not named the same. This is per level stats multiplier dino tamed. This is the exact same thing as tamed dino stats per level, but it's just worded differently. Per level stats multiplier dino tamed. So here's an example. This is where you would change those. So this is another way, instead of going into the in-game client, this is another way you can change the dino stats. You change them right here. In fact, let me exit out of this. So just playing music in the background. There's a couple other game-specific settings that are in here as well. The game user settings.ini, this one. This is where all of the mod settings are going to be. So if you scroll down past the default settings, and you get down here to server settings, and you get down here even further, let me just do Control F. That's the easiest way to do it. Control F, DOX Settings. There we go. Big file. Sometimes it's better just to search. So DOX Settings, apparently all I have set here is alpha chance equals 1. Yeah, so I'm just using everything as default right now. But let's say I want to set stage megas. So tiered bosses equals true. Like I said, by default is false. I'm just going to copy that, pop that right here. And now I have tiered bosses enabled, staged megas. I have them enabled now. So when I load my single player game, if I save this file and I restart ARK, when I start DOX, this setting will now be applied. So that's it. Whatever settings you want to change, you just put them here under DOX settings. This applies to any mod. So if I wanted to change an S+ setting, I would do the same thing. Change whatever setting I want here, add a setting that doesn't exist here, remove a setting that already exists. One important S+ setting that you want to change is the pull resource additions list. By default, this is not set. If you've been playing some other mod, it'll have some other mod settings in here. There's a lot of docs items that you'll want to add to this list, and obviously you don't want to do that by hand. So the way you do that is you go to the Discord, come over here to INI ASM discussion, and you're going to click on pinned messages, and up here we have the pull list. You can download this file. It's just a text file, and go ahead and copy and paste it into your game user settings.ini, and copy and paste right here at the equal sign, and it'll fill in the rest for you. It will also paste this line right here, dedicated storage allow non-stackables equals true. This makes sure that you can put things that don't typically stack, like artifacts, into dedicated storage, and they will properly stack. So you can put 100 artifact of the pack into a single dedicated storage. Saves up on a lot of space. It's nice to have. So that's how you set up your game user settings.ini. Now, if you already have a game user settings and game ini from a different game instance, what I would recommend doing is just go ahead, like say you're playing some other mod and you don't want to change the settings. Well, go ahead and just move these into another folder. Now they're gone. I have them in backup. And when you launch ARK, you're going to notice that all your settings are gone. Now this is going to change your keybinds and stuff like that, so maybe you only move one of the files. For me, you can't hear it, but it just turned my audio way up because I had my audio turned down. It also put it into windowed mode. So all my options got changed. But this can be a good way to get kind of a clean INI. You just move your INI files into another folder, and suddenly they're clean. And if I go here to my local game, look, there's no more mods. We had set the tame dino stats to easy, and now they're not on easy anymore. 0.2 health, 0.17 damage. These are like hardest settings. So we now have a clean config. So what I could do is exit the game, and you always want to exit the game when you are changing your INI files. And if I come back here to INI, I can see that I have a brand new game.ini, and my player stats, or per stats level multiplier dino tamed 0.2, 0.17. So this has been set back to default, and these are the settings we were just looking at. So these are now clean configs, and you notice my audio is turned way up. Now I don't necessarily want these because there's nothing in here. But if you did have messed up settings and you want to just do everything all over from scratch, this is how you do it. Now I don't want these ones. What I want to do actually is I want to use the INI files that are on official. So I'm going to go over here to server config on the Discord. I'm going to download game user settings and I'm going to download game.ini. I'm going to keep both of these files. And they're here in my downloads. I'm just going to drag and drop them. Let's refresh so they go in sorted. And now what I can do, I have all my server settings are set here. All my DOX settings are set up. All this is all set to exactly how official has it set. So when I launch ARK again, these settings will take over, and I can see here in game.ini my per level stats, Dino tamed. Where are they? Per level stats, Dino tamed. Here we go. 0.7, 0.35. These are all correct. I can even now go and open up game user settings on INI, go into my backup, my original game user settings, and let's see, under shooter game settings, .shooter game user. Yeah, here's all my shooter game user settings. I can even change all of these back to what they were. That way I get my default keybinds and stuff like that. Scalability, you can change this back to normal. Game session settings, you can leave that alone. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy all of this back over, and I'm going to delete these ones and replace them with mine. Cool. So now I'm going to save this, save the file, exit it, make sure it's not open for editing. If it's open for editing, when you run ARK, it will not properly load those INI files. But you can see here, these are the new ones. We just edited this file, 1024, 1025 now. And ARK is loading, and when it loads in, we should have the correct settings. So you can see my background changed again, because I just changed those player settings. Go to advanced, let's make sure. Tame Dino stats per level, and there we go. Health is 0.7, damage is 0.35. These are set to hard, which is what the DOX official difficulty config had when this was posted in April 2nd, 2023. This was from the hard server. So if you don't want the hard server, but you want all the other official settings, you do what we just did, and then you change this back to easiest, or whatever difficulty you do want. Cool, we're back to easiest settings. So we have all of our mods here. We have everything configured identically to how it was configured on official. In the game user settings.ini, and that includes all of the settings for S+, that includes the pull list, that includes the settings for the upgrade station to make them not broken. It includes the settings for Awesome Spyglass, Creature Finder Deluxe, whatever. So yeah, now you're good to go, and you can play your single player game. You would do this exactly the same if you were doing this on a server. The only difference you would make is the location of the files. They're not going to be in this Windows no editor path. These files will be somewhere else depending on what server company you use. If you use, Nitrado or whatever other server provider, I can't think of any other names at the moment. But if you use any of those, it's going to be at some other location. You got to figure out what location that is, and then you edit your INI files from there. So that's how you set up DOX. I hope this helped you guys, and if you have any other questions, feel free to ask in the Discord, and enjoy DOX. Bye.